Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports, and today we are going to be doing 5 things learned from the Rainbow Cup South Africa. Basically a couple of takeaways from the weekend's action. A very interesting weekend. We've spoken at quite a lot of length in terms of what it means for the coming weekend, but basically it is a semi-final between the Bulls and the Sharks, with the Sharks having to beat the Bulls with a bonus point and deny them a losing bonus point to try and sneak into that Rainbow Cup final. However, if the Sharks do get into the Rainbow Cup final, they will be short quite a few players, whereas the Bulls, if they make that final, will only be losing 4 players as per the Bok announcement squad. Before we look at the 5 things learned, please do smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. We've got a press conference up from John Dobson, so go check that out. We'll also be in a press conference tomorrow with Jacques Nienaber. You'll be giving an update with one of the players tomorrow from the Springbok conditioning camp, which is currently happening in Bloemfontein. So make sure you subscribe right now. Hit that subscribe button so that you are part of the channel and you get all that sort of news nice and early. Without any further ado, let's go look at number 1 and get stuck into what we've learned from the past weekend. So quite frustrating to watch the Lions, who after putting in a brilliant performance against the Bulls and coming away very deserved victors, they were pretty, I wouldn't say ordinary, because I think that's a bit harsh, but they just weren't quite up to stand up against the Sharks. And I think especially the frustrating part is it was largely a Sharks B team, with them missing quite a few players, and yet the Lions couldn't go and do the job against them. And I think a lot of it comes down to the experience and the type of squad the Lions has at the moment. The Lions have got a very young squad, a very inexperienced squad, with a lot of sort of play. I mean, if there's anything that sort of shows you where the Lions are, just one player involved in the Bok squad. One player's been called up, and that is one of the Steelers, Similani. There's also Alton Yankees, who's not currently with the Lions, but is still the Lions' contracted player. But even with him, just 2 players are called up into that Springbok squad, which I don't think necessarily tells you how it's a bad squad, but it's just a very young squad. And I think even the experienced players are a lot of players who've either been there and done that, or players who probably never quite will make it. I mean, you've got your sort of, Courtney Scotson's played for the Springboks, Willem Alberts has played for the Springboks, Andy Duplessis has played for the Springboks. But after that, it's a very young side, full of some very exciting talent. But, the problem when it comes to youngsters and having a young squad is the consistency, because that is what you get with young players. It's inevitable. They can have some brilliant games and they'll have some poor games as they still sort of learn. The older you get, the more consistently you can start churning out a similar performance every single week. That's why you look at players like Dwayne Vermeulen, Steven Kitshoff, some of the most consistent players in the country who week in, week out will give you very similar performances because, they've had that time, they've come to grips with their game, they know exactly where they are within their careers. Where some of these young players are still sort of trying to work out where to slot in, trying to sort of learning on the job. And I think the biggest thing for the Lions is if they want to bring in that consistency, they've got to look at bringing in players who understand their game and who've got that sort of experience. But also players who are still going to make it into that starting lineup. I mean, the Bulls have brought in lots of players, but importantly, they've brought in a lot of experience, which is coming in and sorting them out right now. So if the Lions want to become an overnight team that can sort of challenge for the title, they need to bring in a couple of players who can slot into the starting 15 and provide that guidance, provide that experience, because that's kind of what they're missing at the moment. There's lots of very exciting players, and it is quite a nice squad. But I just think that they're lacking maybe 3-4 players with a lot of experience that can try to sort of channel all this sort of youth in the right direction and provide the right sort of guidance. So something that we finally saw this weekend, which a lot of us, and if you've been hanging out on the live stream, we've been talking quite a bit about the fact that Werner Kok is wasted when he comes on and plays at the wing. Not the fastest player on the field, but definitely the hardest worker. And we kept saying in the live stream that I'd love to see him at centre. And Werner Kok this weekend, he got into the team of the week. I think for me was the standout outside centre. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Because at outside centre, defensively, he absolutely loves tackling. When you watch him for the Sevens, it's his defence which makes him such an amazing player. And, he was just loving life in that outside centre channel. He was making lots of tackles. He was getting an opportunity to get more on the ball. But not necessarily try and sort of finish around people, but be able to run at people, be a bit more direct. Still try and bring in a bit of sort of offload and stuff like that. He does have those 7 skills, but I think it's a position that far more complements his strengths. And I think if we can see it happening more often, then maybe Werner Kok could have a decent career in the next couple of years in the 15s game and not be limited to the 13s game. I think we've seen how well Ruan now slotted in at 13 and even made the Bok squad. I'm hoping we can see a similar thing with Werner Kok if he gets some more opportunity to play at outside centre. If the Sharks, for example, made that North versus South final, I think we will see Verticock at 13, and obviously in the Currie Cup and against the Lions, I'm hoping we'll see him more and more at 13, because I think that's a position he can kind of thrive in. Obviously, there's Zukanya so he's not going to be moving him anytime soon, but it's definitely a very good deputy to have, and I think that we saw this weekend that that's probably a much better position for him to play week in, week out. So I think something that Rassie Rasmus and Dr. Ninabar even allude to is the fact that we've seen, this is now the fourth competition in South Africa with just South African teams. We're very bored of it. I mean, we all, and now we have to give ourselves another Currie Cup. So it is getting a little bit boring, all watching the same players play against each other week in, week out. But there's no doubt that the standard of rugby of the Rainbow Cup SA has been substantially higher than what we saw in Super Rugby, Currie Cup, and the preparation series. I mean, last weekend, we saw a really good clash between the Stormers and the Bulls. We saw over 270 tackles by the Stormers, and yet, it was still a relatively high-scoring game, and the Bulls still managed to sort of thing. But this is what I'm saying. We saw very physical, very, very intense clashes, which seem to be at a much higher caliber than previously. And that really bodes well, because it's important, not even so much as in terms of the Springboks gelling together, but it's important that these players are playing at a high intensity and are sort of playing at high performance levels consistently. So when it comes into going to test match, it's not this massive step up. It's more about, we've been playing at a similar intensity, so that's fine. Now it's just about us slotting in with each other and making sure we can kind of gel and do the work on the pitch. But I think it definitely has been a very big improvement, and I'm hoping that we're going to see a much better standard rugby in the Currie Cup, as well as obviously the Springboks hopefully not taking too long to sort of adapt to their conditions. So a bit of a weird concept to be the heir to the throne at 30 years old, but Marcel Coetzee is 5 years younger than Duane Vermeulen. And the performance I saw this weekend was one of a player who is ready to sort of lead that Bulls side. Arno Botha is currently the official vice captain. Duane Vermeulen turns 35 in July. So I think we're going to see maybe 1, maybe 2 more years of Duane Vermeulen. I don't see him playing much more than sort of 37. I mean, can anybody? I mean, he will be 36 next year. 2023 World Cup at 37. I think that's probably too far. In which case, you're probably going to look at somebody who's going to replace him. And I think when you're looking at Albert Lowe, you've got Arno Botha, Marcel Coetzee, Malcolm Staden is leaving. That for me is going to be the loose trio for the future. I mean, it's an incredible loose trio to have. But I think that, in every loose trio, there's always that sort of that main player, that sort of player that does it week in, week out. And I think it's going to be Marcel Coetzee. He was absolutely terrific for the Bulls on Friday. And I think if he had been putting that performance in for 2 or 3 weeks, he would have been assured for that box squad. I still think he will become part of that box squad if something happens to Duane and he can't recover, because he just makes the most sense as the replacement. He can cover anywhere in that back row. Always gives us all a very big ball carrier, very good in the defense. He's got a complete game. I think he's been probably the best signing that the Bulls are going to make, because I think that he will be able to, when Duane Vermeulen leaves, I think Marcel Coetzee will be at the level where obviously you're going to lose something when you lose Duane Vermeulen, but I don't think you're going to lose you're not going to lose as much if you have someone like Marcel Coetzee playing at the level and intensity that he did this weekend. Whilst the Stormers didn't get a win this weekend, it looked like a much better effort. Defensively, they were much better. We saw Tim Swiel and Damien Willems operating the backline a lot better. And I think that what we saw on Friday is probably the identity that the Stormers want to be playing, the brand of rugby that they want to be playing, and something that they've been struggling to kind of put together throughout the tournament. If the Stormers could put in performances like that and take it up to the next level, they could start actually hitting the peaks that squad should be. It's an unbelievably talented squad. Minus Bongi Minambi, who has signed for the Sharks. Some bit of the news there. We'll cover that more in our weekly or in our news show, which will be live tomorrow night, same time as Monday, 8 South African Standard Time. So make sure you come and hang out for that. But yeah, I think that if the Stormers can play in a similar fashion they did on Friday, they'll be able to beat. They should have beaten the Bulls. They'll be able to beat the Sharks. They can beat the Lions. And I think if they can sort of use that as a template for the rest of their campaign, really, in terms of the Currie Cup and the Pro 16, it's a very good template to use. And if they can continue delivering those performances, I think they can be quite competitive in the Pro 16. They looked so much better. It looked much more like a side worthy of the sort of names and the talent we've seen in them. So hopefully they can use that and kind of keep going up to the next level. That can kind of become a bit of a springboard. This weekend, John Dobson did say they're going to have to rest a few players, because I think in the next sort of 10 days afterwards, they've got 2 Currie Cup clashes, because there are midweek Currie Cup clashes, trying to get quite a few games in before the British and Irish Lions arrive. We will then have franchise games. So it's quite a disruptive schedule, but we'll be keeping you up to date with all that, so don't you worry. Please do smash like on the video. Let me know what you thought of the weekend. If there's anything else that you picked up, if there's anything you disagree with me and anything like that, let me know in the comments. It's all about healthy debate. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to push to 1,600 subscribers. maybe by the end of the week, and then try and push to even 2,000 by British and Irish Lions series. But so yeah, please feel be part of that. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Stephen, and I'll chat to you very, very soon.